Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian, and I'm so honored to have with us today Nabil Nasur. He's the CEO of the Remade Institute. Welcome, Nabil, to the Impact Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's wonderful to be with you, John. Thank you very much.
You know, I was telling you off the air before we started recording, I only have one regret about this podcast, that I should have had you on earlier. You've been doing this work for so long and been doing great work for so long and have inspired me for so long that I'm so finally glad that we invited you and that you agreed to come on, because your work is not only some of the most important work and has inspired so many people like me, but is now going to help us carry us into the next generation of economies, which is really the circular economy.
Right, right. Well, we can only talk about how things should be done, and we can offer, scientific solutions and all of this stuff. But if it wasn't for great industry leaders like you actually doing the actual work, carrying out a lot of this vision, we wouldn't make any progress. So it's we all need each other.
It works both ways, but I
Yes.
want the audience to know you've inspired me and many other entrepreneurs along the way, and continue to inspire me with your great work. You know, Nabil, before we get going about everything you're doing at the Remade Institute, can you share a little bit about yourself, where you were born, and how did you get on this really impactful journey that you're on?
Yeah. Well, I was actually born in Egypt. I went to engineering school. I was trained to be an engineer, and I immigrated to the U.S. at a young age. I finished college actually in Egypt, so not that young.
Okay.
And I remember I started doing a lot of consulting work early on while I was still in graduate school. And I remember working with one company and walking in their facility, looking at what they do, and all of a sudden they explained to me that there's something called remanufacturing of it's all medical equipment, very large, extensive hardware and everything else, medical equipment. So I walked in there and they educated me on what remanufacturing is. And I think that was changed my perception of everything. I was never taught about how you take equipment back, how you salvage material, how you bring material back and bring it back to like new conditions through remanufacturing. And I got so interested in this area. And once I got my PhD and all of that, it became my passion to actually see what we can do in this area, because realizing how large this piece of equipment is and all the material that we consume to make it. And then after a few years, because the technology advanced so fast in this area, and you don't want to work on application critical for human health with equipment that are 3, 4 years old. So you need to always upgrade. So to take those equipment, take all this hardware and upgrade it to the latest technology, what really remanufacturing does. And that really was how I started into this area. I didn't learn it in school. I think in many cases we don't teach it
Right.
in schools. And I spent my career actually doing a lot of development. I always said in remanufacturing, it's an art. And my job was to work with others to help translate that art into science. So all of my career actually, for example, if you have a module in a machine and you are thinking that this module still has a lot of life left in it, if you can confirm that this is a case, you just cannot use it again. So we developed something called signature analysis, where we can actually take this module and determine its remaining life through science and technology. So it's just a fascinating field that intrigued me years ago, and it continues to drive my passion for this area.
Nabil, when you were trained as classically trained as an engineer, what was your original goal? What were you going to be an engineer in what industry?
So I studied mechanical engineering, and then in grad school I shifted to manufacturing engineering, and my passion was really in how you take a design and translate it into a product, manufacture it into a product. So I was very much in the interface between design and manufacturing.
Understand. That's so interesting. And okay. So then now you get inspired, you understand that reuse can be a thing. When did you then evolve your career into creating and founding the Remade Institute? And how did that evolve? Like from the beginning of your inspiration to the beginning of the Remade Institute, what was the evolution?
Well, the time between really becoming really interested and passionate about the work in this area till Remade Institute was quite a few years. So initially, I created I I'm at Rochester Institute of Technology in the engineering school at the time, and I founded a center focused primarily on remanufacturing and resource recovery. That was the name of the center and still exists today, Center for Remanufacturing and Resource Recovery. So I actually added a lot of brilliant engineers, a lot of science and technology in this area. We did work with a lot of companies in many countries, and that took a few years. And then I I helped founding in the founding of the Remanufacturing Industries Council, which is a very strong council that exists today and does a lot of great work. So a lot of my work was in the resource recovery and remanufacturing at the time and continues till today. And then from there, there was a national competition to establish national institutes in the US that are critical for the US economy and competitiveness of manufacturing industry in the US. By doing that also, it's very important for US national security, economic security, and so on. So the government actually established at the time 15 institutes. Remade was one of them, each in a separate area. Each is different focus, different activities. So I applied with a pretty sizable team to actually to establish one on focus primarily on recycling, focus on material recovery, focus on remanufacturing, focus on a lot of areas that typically have not gotten a lot of attention in the past. And for the young people, for the engineers who have this mindset that I want to do things, I want to make an impact, this area is awesome because there we have for years we haven't done much to advance technology in this area, and now it's our time to actually make that huge difference. So we applied with the team, and we won phase one, and we won the phase two, and we went for an oral interviews, and we got selected. And
Wow.
we've been for 8 years now at the National Center, National Institute that's focused primarily on what I call it the neglected technologies for years. I mean, there are a lot of great entrepreneurs, a lot of great industrialists like yourself who have done a lot of work in this area, but we haven't done it, we haven't invested heavily at the national level and the education system and workforce training in years. So we've been doing that for 8 years, and the results are amazing when you put some effort into this area. I mean, I can tell you stories about how we changed the mindset in many areas because we focused on it, and we put what I call the brightest mind in the US, from universities to industry to national labs, in it's working together in advancing technology in this area.
It's so interesting. You were trained in design and mechanical engineering, and
Right.
that's you were so far ahead of your time in terms of your classic education. Because when I think back to it now, of course, and of course, retrospective thinking is, of course, so perfect compared to prospective thinking. I think back to all the OEMs that have been our clients over the years, wonderful big brands and companies, and now they all have new divisions, relatively new, called Design for Sustainability, all about
Yes.
the circular, basically how to design their products in a more circular, recyclable, sustainable way. So they
Yeah.
put design together with this sustainability, and that's basically getting them the circular. They're just taking them down the circular path they want to be on. So it's
Yeah.
so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's fascinating, John, because the when you actually do that, when you design the product with that in mind up front, you can do magical things that would change a lot of the challenges that we face when we actually bring this product back for recycling, for remanufacturing. But doing that up front can result in significant advantage to actually do that. Now we're talking about, just the today, the government, rightfully so, and something that I have been talking about for 20 years. Now I think we're serious about it because the challenges are much greater than it was before. Critical minerals, for example, rare earth elements. So
Yes.
through recycling, through recovery of this material, and I know your company is a pioneer in this area. If you talk about rare earths, theoretically and practically, we can recover through these processes to meet our needs of this materials 30 to 40%. The percentage of rare earth, for example, that is coming from recycling technology in the EU is like 1%. So we and the EU are got a way to go to ensure that we get there to meet your demand, significant portion of your demand through mining for a lot of material that we actually had used before. Copper, for example, 40 to 75%. We're talking about cobalt, 20 to 40%. You can use that from recycled material. Lithium, 20 to 30%. And nickel, 20 to 30%. So a lot of these numbers can also change with advanced technology, with better and better sorting technology and technology for recycling and making the material as pure as possible.
Let's go
So,
back. Let's stick on that topic of critical minerals. So last week, Forbes magazine had an article on the title of the article is this exactly what you just said, Nasir. Nabil, it was the critical minerals race and America's recycling opportunity. And in the article, Nabil, it said this: the founder of Cyclic Materials, which has a recycling facility in Arizona, told the
mhm,
Wall Street Journal that old gadgets people throw out every year could comprise the world's largest, and then in quotes, above ground deposits of rare earth materials.
yeah,
Just what you
yeah.
just said.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
absolutely. I mean, every person globally, we're talking about like 17.2 pounds of e-waste generated by an average person worldwide. I mean, in my vocabulary, by the way, John, we don't call anything waste. We don't call it e-waste. We call it e-scrap
Okay.
because waste implies that this is kind of waste,
It's finished. It's finished.
has no value.
No, no
And
value.
we think about anything, old products, we call them cores. They are materials in a different form that still
Right.
has value if you figure out
100%.
how to recycle it.
100%. Let's talk about that. Let's before we go into e-waste, which we can always go into later. I want to talk about, generally speaking. So I've been in this business 23 years, Nabil, and what I've seen is sustainability wasn't really a big thing in North America when I got in this business. It was in many parts of Europe, and of course South Korea and Japan. When I look back, I really think about, why was Germany, England, Spain, France, South Korea, Japan, why were they onto sustainability a generation or two ago? Well, they were small countries. They were geographically challenged, where they couldn't have the go and throw society like we've enjoyed and obviously abused here in North America. Now we've caught up in many ways. Sustainability is a thing, but sustainability and a lot of the alphabet soup of acronyms then started getting a little politicized. And what I've seen, and you tell me if this is correct, that the world has landed on the circular economy as really the trend that everyone wants to get behind. And
Right.
and that's exciting. What does the circular economy, mean for the future of the United States to you, and for the future of the planet? Because everywhere I go, whether it's the Emirates, whether it's Japan, whether it's India, I've been there all last year. All the leaders in all these countries, all they want to talk about is how to make their country, how to make their community more circular.
Yeah, well, circular economy, and thanks to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation,
Right.
actually that really coined that term. I was lucky enough to actually participate in their first book on circular economy way back then. And for full disclosure, I'm a trustee in North America was a foundation, and I love what the foundation has done. Circular economy has talking about sustainability in manufacturing is a very, very lofty areas of focus, and it's hard sometimes for people to figure out what is it that I can do to help in this area. Circularity actually simplified. Circularity makes it much easier for people to understand and be able to have tangible things that they can achieve. So circular economy actually ensure that the nature is circular, and we want to make sure that we reduce waste by design, and that's one of the goals for the circular economy. We want to design out waste. We want to ensure that we use the resources that we have to its maximum potential. We want to make sure we extend product life, so this way we don't continue to actually throw away a product after a short period of time. So it's a lot of it is really focusing on that energy efficiency, that we want to make sure that we don't continue to mine. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is mining for material extraction and processing has the most footprint of any product, is the most contributor to the footprint of any product globally. We're talking about 80% or so of from emission to waste generation and so on. So mining for material is a very, very complicated thing, and it probably results in significant impact from any product in terms of its footprint contribution from this processes to the footprint of the product itself. So circularity trying to reduce that, trying to ensure that we create recycling method that allow us to bring the materials back. Aluminum, for example, when you have virgin aluminum, use significant electricity, significant energy to generate, to make that virgin aluminum into rolls that we can use in making product and so on. If you use recycled aluminum, you're probably reducing your energy consumption in making that aluminum by maybe 70% or even more. So it has significantly less. Not to mention that this, if we have an effective take-back system, a lot of those materials are readily available. That if we recycle it effectively and properly, we probably can save significant energy from extracting new materials for
Right.
the new product. So circularity has all the elements. One of the things also I want to mention about circularity, it's about resiliency in the supply chains. If I reach 40% of recycling rate, as we do today, for example, with steel and aluminum and many other metals, then it's 40% less to import,
Right.
typically from countries not in the US, from countries outside the US, for example, that we would have to count on to bring these materials.
When you start looking at other countries, Europe, let's just take Europe for example, in Asia, and then now look at North America, more specifically, even the United States. Where are we in the circular economy race and evolution? Are we behind? Are we about even? Are we ahead? Where are we, and what can we do to bring ourselves more velocity towards this very important transition?
Well, this is a terrific question, and a question that is very difficult to answer, but I'll try. Uh, so, in terms of realization, what circular economy is, how important it is to a manufacturing sector in the U.S., in terms of how important it is to resiliency of our system here that we have in the U.S. in understanding also the impact on cost and many factors that actually contribute to manufacturing competitiveness, the realization of that and the endorsement of that from all levels in the U.S. here is way behind. We're
Mm,
still struggling. For years, EPA, for example, was shying away from the term circular economy. They talked about different terms and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the realization and acceptance and awareness is definitely we're way behind. We're way behind Europe. We're way behind China. We're way behind many countries in this area. Now, in terms of the technology, and this speaks to the wonderful entrepreneurial spirit that we have in the U.S. It speaks to some amazing industry that is resilient, that is innovative in the U.S. Companies like ERI, your company, John,
no,
is one of the pioneers in the electronic recycling side, for example. So I argue that from technology perspective,
no.
we're doing very good. And because industry is doing a lot, but we can do far, far more if we have much, much larger investment, larger objective programs that come from the government or other forms. But the individual companies that the technology that we develop in recycling today are pretty good. So we're very competitive in many of those, many of those areas. However, there are areas, for example, where China has a huge state investment in. It's hard to compete sometimes with those.
Isn't it good though, instead of making China our enemy, isn't it better to look at them for the successful work that they're doing and us to replicate it and to get inspired by it and to use it as aspirational and inspirational type of work that like you said, we can be better and we should be better.
Absolutely. I think we definitely can benefit from sharing, from comparing notes, from benchmarking with each other, from transferring technology in this area. Because what happened is that we all go to Chile to get some materials there, lithium, or we go to the Republic of Congo to get certain. So we all after a lot of this natural resources and those are typically difficult to mine, difficult to extract, and all of this. So it benefits everybody if we all collaborate and actually work together. And in science and technology, um, we don't know how not to cooperate because there's just a lot of development that come from
Right.
all corners of the world.
Nabil, how do we get the word recycling to be cool? You know, whenever I tell people I'm in the recycling business, they go, "Oh, you're one of those woo-woo guys." Recycling's not woo-woo. It's important for the future of the planet, as you've pointed out
Right.
numerous times. How can we get the recycling rates to be to rise in the United States much higher than they've traditionally been?
Yeah, it really is a tough thing to actually change the mindset and perception. Same issue we have with remanufacturing. We bring the product back to like new condition. If you
Right.
fly in an aircraft today, any aircraft, the chances that parts of this aircraft have been remanufactured is pretty high. But remanufacturing has that quantification that people think of it as lesser thing, while we actually scientifically we can prove that many of those, if it's done correctly, many of those modules are as good as new, if even better. But again, a lot of it has to go to like the mindset of people and how we train people. And I think the key here is that when you talk to young people about careers, for example, when you talk about working in recycling industry, they think of that as, gosh, this is smelting metals and all of that. That's a dirty industry, and I wouldn't want to be working there until they see the value that's going there and they see the high tech there.
Right.
But I think a lot of it, our society have to change its mind. I think a lot of work like what you're doing with your podcast and others, we have to do to educate a lot of people on the value of the work and the fact that it's very high tech. It's not really low tech and dirty industry.
You mentioned earlier copper, silver, nickel, and critical minerals and rare earths. Why is circularity so important when it comes to electronics and the extraction of those materials for, as you say, U.S. supply chain resilience, government defense, and also for powering the green economy now and in the future? To talk a little bit about the interrelationship between those minerals and rare earths and metals and the future of the defense industry, resiliency of our supply chain in the United States, and then also just the future of the circular economy as a whole.
Yeah, I think that the key is that the electronic devices have changed our lives.
Mm,
Electronic devices have been growing at a very, very fast rate. We're talking about a market size of over $1 trillion a year. We're talking about a person with the average number of devices a person would have in 2018 was like 2.4. Today it's 3.6 or something like that.
right.
It's growing rapidly. And the fact is that we use a lot of precious metals, we use a lot of critical minerals, we use a lot of rare earth into these products, and they don't last forever.
Right.
So they have a life. So the key here is that this is the fastest growing sector. It's a very large sector. We generate the average person would generate 17.2 pounds of I hate to use the word e-waste
Right. But e-scrap,
annually.
e-scrap.
Yeah, e-scrap. Yeah. So there is a lot that happens unlike other products.
That's so interesting. You know, thanks. I'm beyond humbled and honored and privileged to be speaking at your great. You invited me to speak at your great 2026 Remade Circular Economy Tech Summit and Conference in Washington, D.C. on March 11th and 12th. Talk a little bit about the purpose of the conference, why you put it on, and what you want the outcomes to be from this great conference.
Yeah, so the conference actually started with the start of the Remade Institute. So we are the institute is developed, and we have about 70 some companies and 41 universities and 8 national labs and 32 trade associations. So we have a sizable crowd, and I always say that those are the brightest minds that we have in the U.S. working on a common goal to advance science and technology in this area. So we had a technology exhibit for our members. We wanted to showcase technology developed. And as I said before, John, when you see what we're able to accomplish in a few years, it is just mind-boggling how, when we put our mind into something and put the investment into it, how much progress we have made in such a short period of time. So we had that technology showcase for all of our members. And then we felt, as you said earlier, it's so important to share this knowledge. It's so important also to think about who else is working in this area in Japan, in Europe, that we want to also see what they're doing. So we established this conference as an annual event every year. We have it at the National Academy of Sciences every year around March, April timeframe. And it's the largest exhibits of basically the latest technology and presentation. Everything is peer reviewed. It has to be new contribution to science in the area. The first conference, we were blown away by the number of papers that were presented that went through that peer review process. We published the proceeding for this conference was published in a book was 800 pages of new development, new science that's developed in this area, new methods. So we continue to do that every year, and it's an annual conference that bring a lot of science scientists from everywhere. So you are one of our keynote speaker, John, because we tremendously value what you do, what your company does. I don't think you guys realize how important what you do and in globally, not just in the
Right.
US, is you guys are paving the way to a lot of people in this area. We have a speaker from Australia, also one of our keynote speaker, one a brilliant environmental economist from the UK, from UCL, and we have a brilliant woman talking about some of the modeling and some of the business models and decision-making tools. She's from the Netherlands. And we have panels in many, many
Great.
areas, from textile recycling to electronic recycling to critical minerals,
This, this is
recovery
this
of
is
critical minerals.
This is so wonderful. So really, you're creating this conference really becomes your facilitation of, as you pointed out earlier, the necessary collaboration to accelerate the circular economy behavior around the world and trade best practices among one another.
Absolutely. I think in my mind, I mean, my career was marked by my passion for work in this area, and nothing excites an engineer more than finding an opportunity to do something better.
Right.
And in this area, there was not much attention given to a lot of work that we do in this area. So I think in my mind, my philosophy is it's immoral for us to hold back some of the technology advancement and things that can help others, can help them have a cleaner environment, help them to have better recovery of materials, help them to do better environmentally. It's not right if we knew the answer and we're not sharing it. And we learn a lot from others. I mean, we bring a lot of people from everywhere, and we learn a lot from them as well. So it's never just one-way street.
Was when you started the Remade Institute, were there a lot of naysayers and people from the cheap seats booing? And as you have evolved it now, of course, you're a genius, and everyone understands that, and everyone understands how much vision you had then, back when, because literally this is the hottest. There's no hotter topic in every meeting, whether it's with a government entity, whether it's with a publicly traded corporation, a privately held organization. When I have meetings with our clients and potential clients, they want to talk about circularity. That's what they want to talk about. How to make their company, how to make their goals more material to their mission, and how to also make their organization, as you pointed out earlier, keyword resilient.
Right.
What were the boos like from the cheap seats when you started, and how good does it feel now that literally the world is rallying around your great work because they realize this is really where the future is?
Well, the reality is, I think there are very enlightened people. There are very enlightened companies that actually endorse this, understand the value, understand it's critical for their competitiveness.
Sure.
It's critical for their resiliency. It's critical for their customers. I mean, if you take a look into many of the companies that do very well in circularity, like a company like Xerox, many years ago, when they developed that leasing model to ensure that the equipment can stay in the market for a long time, upgraded and so on. So there are companies who are enlightened. There are people in the C-suite who are enlightened. Unfortunately, there's still a lot that are not.
Right.
And it's we don't really we don't really get mad when you see somebody who doesn't get it. We
Right.
work very hard to ensure that we convey to them the message. Unfortunately, our society and our monetary system um, does not really, for example, if you generate a lot of waste, it's heading to landfill, very low cost to you, it's almost negligible. But if you had to pay for it, you might have thought otherwise. So there's
Right.
abundance of materials, and that's one of the challenges that we face. So we still have a lot of people who actually don't necessarily endorse a lot of work in this area. Many times sustainability is something that they really like to talk about, but sometimes it's difficult to actually implement it. But there are a lot of smart people like you who actually value this. A lot of people like you actually practice what you preach as well. So,
Right.
so we still got a way to go. I mean, I wish it was all positive, but still have got a lot of way to go to convince people, to convince the organization that that is the right way to move forward.
Agreed. But like you said, instead of getting mad, it's good just to continue the journey and continue to educate others and bring them along through education instead of through other means. Let's
Right.
talk about some positive things. Talk about some of your most proud accomplishments and initiatives at the Remade Institute over the years.
Well, the most things that I'm really proud of is the fact that we created an ecosystem. We created an environment where companies from all sectors come to collaborate. And it was fascinating in the early days when Nike and Michelin, they all use rubber. They didn't think they have anything in common, but they did, and put them together to work in a project together and have some really great results. The things that I'm really proud of when I go to a company. I was just visiting one of the largest and the most advanced company in the world in remanufacturing, Caterpillar, and looking to see that they are implementing some of the work that Remade actually developed,
Wow.
and and how to see how highly they talk about the work that Remade has done benefiting them. So we have technology in the e-scrap side, for example, to recover high value materials very effectively. It got commercialized. We have another project that commercialized that actually looking at to bring recycled aluminum to the aerospace specs, which was very difficult to achieve in the past. We have a lot of technology that deal, for example, with in plastic recycling, where many product in plastics, for example, flexible packaging materials are very difficult to recycle. They're not recycled. They get gummy and they break the machines when you actually try to recycle them.
Right.
Today we have solutions for that. So it's fascinating because you bring some of the brightest experts, from industry, academia, national labs, trade association participate in a lot of this work. It's really it's mind-boggling when you put people who actually come from different areas with their knowledge and expertise work on the same problem, focus on getting some actual results because our institute is industry-led.
Nabil,
So we want to make sure that we're creating things that are not academic publication only. It's something can be implemented.
functional
Yeah,
solutions.
exactly.
Nabil, how does it work? If I'm the leader of a company and I
Mm.
really believe in what you're doing and I believe in everything I'm reading about the circular economy, do I come to you and to the Remade Institute and say, listen, I believe in it. I just don't know how to apply it to my business. I don't really know. We're going to be one of the pioneers in this. And can you help us figure that out? Is that what you do? Do you interrelate with companies that are looking to get into looking to put one foot into the circular economy and others that want to already have a foot in and want to accelerate their foot into the circular economy? How does it really work?
Well, what we do actually is that we bring all sorts of companies at different stages, and I always talk about this. It's not a perfect analogy, but I talk about sustainability and talk about circularity, all of this like as us human. We were young once, and then you become a teenager where you get excited very quickly about something and go run with it to become adults and so on. So there are a lot of maturity for a lot of work that's done in this area.
Right.
Is also depending on where the company is in its journey. They might have more excitement at some point of time about a certain part of it. So we actually provide a lot of support for companies. We get them to benchmark against other. We connect. We do a lot of this matchmaking, connect companies that actually have made it in the same area at a good level. We offer a lot of training also through our workforce development online training programs. We do a lot of on-site training as well. We have a very large company that is a very visionary leadership. They just joined us, but they didn't know exactly what it is that we can help them with. So we facilitated basically a strategic planning session for them to actually go through all of their challenges and rank order them and all of this stuff and identify something that everyone agreed to. If we have a solution for this problem, that would be very helpful. So we help them develop their own list, of how to move forward.
Nabil, there's not a day that you and I wake up and read the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or look at Bloomberg or CNBC and don't hear the acronym AI. How is AI going to help power the great work of the Remade Institute and also the future of the circular economy? Is the time now, or is it going to be in the future? And do we really know it's going to make the impact that we want it to make?
Well, what a great question. I get asked this all the time. The AI is a magnificent tool if it's used properly and guided and ensuring that it is actually helping us in areas that can provide significant value. So AI can have significant impact, and I think we have 19 projects, I believe, or 20 projects that we made that's AI based.
Wow.
So we've been doing that for a number of years. So sorting technology, when you go to a MRF operation, MRF is material recovery facility. So this is where we take all of our recycling in communities and dump it in a facility. We sorting is very difficult to do, and we end up basically recovering only a small fraction of what's giving because there's a lot of contamination and a lot of other issues. However, using vision system and using AI can make a huge difference. I'll give you another example we're doing today. We're working with a very large company in the US that make a lot of clothing, among other products. And we're trying to make it, textile to textile, basically completely recover the materials and use it to make new product. But you got to clear it from any contamination. Contamination here means I got buttons, completely different materials. I got zipper, completely different material. Sometimes the collar is a different material. So we're using AI and machine learning to actually, in a fast conveyor line, to identify the contaminant, what type of contaminant, and through laser system, we can actually remove this contaminant. Then you have a pure material moving to the end of the line that allow you to recover basically what you need to have high purity that you can use it for making new product. So the AI has a room, and I think it will continue to grow over the years. In manufacturing, unfortunately, our libraries are lacking behind significantly. It's not you can ask about music or ask about something in life where AI can be fantastic in answering. We have our libraries are lacking and needs a lot of work.
Nabil, what's your best advice to the next generation coming up? The 15 to 30-year-olds that are thinking about their career and want to be like you. They want to make a living. They want to pay their bills, but they want to make an impact, like the kind of impact that you're making. What good advice could you give them for their journey ahead?
Um, I think my advice is to ensure that to figure out where your passion is, because when you have the passion for doing something and you enjoy doing it every day and you feel that you're fulfilling something in your life by doing it, that is definitely huge. That would make you far more effective in actually achieving your goals. There are a lot of areas that there is not enough done in those areas. There are a lot of areas where we're likely to see a lot of progress and a lot of changes. And those areas could be in the AI integration, for example. This area could be in building a much more robust design system that allow us to design product for the life cycle, for recyclability, for remanufacturing. There are a lot of areas where there's a lot of innovation. I always tell my team that Edison, in his days, he was making some invention every other day. And I tell them, in the field that we're in, when we deal with a lot of product at the end of life, when we deal with a lot of things like this, And actually, I prefer to use end of use. I don't use the end of life because end of life and it's similar to
Right,
waste.
right,
End of use meaning the product
right,
still can
right. You're
can go
right.
through a remanufacturing or reuse or the modules itself can be captured. So there are a lot of in this side of product development, there are definitely a lot of progress has to be made in the near future. I tell my team this is like the Edison days for us. We can do a lot. We can develop amazing system for material recovery, for material sorting, for determining the remaining life of a module, for remanufacturing system, for recovering materials. So but the key here again is that this person has to be passionate about the work and making sure that this is in line with what they do to enjoy it. There's a lot of business people can work in this environment, develop models, develop tools. There are a lot of circular models developed everywhere. There are a lot of people working in design for circularity.
Got it. Well, Nabil, I'm looking forward to seeing you in March at your great conference, and thank you again for inviting me. And it's going to be a wonderful event for everybody out there that wants to learn more about the Remade Institute and to find Nabil and his colleagues and all the important and great work they're doing to make the world a more circular place. Please go to www.remadeinstitute.org. Remadeinstitute.org. You don't have to write it down. It's going to be in the show notes. Nabil, Nasr, thank you not only for the hour you spent with us today, but thank you more importantly. I'm really grateful to you for making the world a more circular and better place.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. And I look forward to your keynote at the conference and continue to collaborate with you. Thank you.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.